Good morning, friends. Welcome to our webinar series on India's biggest weight loss challenge. Today is very interesting subject. It is going to be the fasting, healthy fasting to manage obesity. It's very important. As we all know, nutrition is very important in terms of weight loss. So I request Professor Adrian Kennedy to introduce Dr. Bhargava Boddu. Yes, sir, please introduce.
Thank you. But before I introduce Dr. Bhargava, before I introduce him, I just wanted to touch upon this concept of fasting as a means of obesity management. And I've read some very interesting bits of information. Very interesting bits of information. It says that fasting, in which you could lose up to a pound, which is half a kg every day of fasting, if you are morbidly obese, is equal to, in terms of benefit, as the gastric bypass surgery without the difficulties that come with surgery. Now that is a fascinating thought. How is fasting defined? Fasting is defined as one meal a day, perhaps one meal a day, and not more than 500 calories on that meal. That would mean maybe a soup, perhaps, or a lean sandwich, perhaps. That would probably define fasting in the way you and I perceive this. Now, there are individuals who go one step further and they do what is alternate day eating, meaning that they fast through the day and only eat the next day. Okay, so why do they do this? Because it would seem that fasting is better than any diet when it comes to losing weight. It's simple, you just don't eat, except for that cup of soup or perhaps a fruit or two at the end of a day, or on alternate days, and the previous day you remain fasting, and during that period of fasting you perhaps have a little, maybe 4 or 5 glasses of water. You don't need to create diets for yourself. You don't need to count calories. You just eat one meal a day, perhaps, and that too a very skimpy meal. However, it is said that when you fast, you need to exercise, and this is unusual. When you are on this fast, you still need to exercise. Otherwise, the body will cannibalize the muscle, and you will have your skin hanging. But then, friends, fasting is not exactly our subject today. Our subject is, healthy fasting, but the faculty today is the author of a book called Naturopathic Fasting. And I took time to try and understand what that is. Naturopathic fasting is used or propagated by individuals and physicians who specialize in naturopathy or nature cure, if you would like to simplify that word. Originated in Germany and is spread across the world. It comprises, now it says over here that food is your medicine. Fasting is not used merely as a means of losing weight, but as a means of purifying the body and healing all diseases. And it says that in order to do that, your diet should not be toxic, or it should be alkaline, which is akin to the acid alkaline content in the body, of the blood, and things like that. And this can only come with natural foods, natural juices, buttermilk perhaps, vegetables, maybe boiled if necessary, whole grain foods are some of the things that are recommended in a naturopathic diet. It removes toxins and heals the body besides losing weight. However, you must consult your physician. And in this instance, I would be more precise and say your naturopathic physician. He would allow you to have water during your period of fast. And the period of fast could be for even 14 days, but usually it is on alternate days or maybe 2 days a week as a cleansing diet. But if you were to lose weight, I would imagine that it would be every day or on alternate days in which you would be allowed certain natural foods in limited quantities. But friends, why am I trying to explain this when we have recorded our expert speaker in this subject? And our speaker is Dr. Bhargava Boddu. Now, I know Dr. Bhargava for the last 20 or 30 years. And as you can see on the screen, and Dr. Bhargava was, when we were in Apollo together, Dr. Bhargava was the director academics in Apollo Life. And he managed our academic programs. And I have to tell you that Dr. Bhargava and I together wrote a book called Holistic Health, in which we pulled together all the different forms of healing, including, of course, my subject, lifestyle medicine, and Dr. Bhargava's subject, naturopathy and homeopathy and allopathy and so many other methods of healing. Now, it says Dr. Bhargava has over 30 years of experience. He spent a lot of time in the United States, where he set up naturopathic clinics, and he also worked in the Middle East. He is vastly knowledgeable, not only in the area of naturopathy, but also lifestyle medicine, where he was part of the Harvard seminars, acupuncture, Ayurveda, cardiac rehab. Dr. Bhargava, in fact, he is the chief medical officer of a hospital currently. And he has set up and managed wellness centers, including India's first Ayush wellness report, a wellness resort, which I had the great privilege of helping to set up. And Dr. Bhargava over there was our chief physician. And this was when we set up this resort in Panvel. He has also, as I mentioned, worked in Abu Dhabi and the United States. And of course, he is the academic director and has recently, not more than a couple of months back to my knowledge, written a book on fasting. And therefore, we invited Dr. Bhargava to speak to us. May we have Dr. Bhargava, please?
Good evening, all. Thank you, Professor Kendi sir, for giving me an opportunity to be part of this program and, giving me an opportunity to, speak about, fasting, particularly in managing obesity. Thank you, sir, once again. Hello, friends. Let us discuss today about, how therapeutic fasting helps in reducing obesity or even preventing obesity. I am Dr. Bhargava. I'm a naturopathy doctor. I've written a book on fasting. So we'll go into this, fasting, we'll discuss about what is fasting, how it helps in improving obesity, what are the types of fasting and, how to do a proper fast. So basically fasting is voluntary abstinence from eating. So it is basically a voluntary act. It is not an involuntary act. Many people think that, fasting is starvation, but starvation is involuntary absence of food. If people don't, have an access to food, so, there's no other go for them. But fasting, you have an access to food, but still you don't want to eat for the food. So that is fasting. So for thousands of years, humans have routinely done periods of fasting and also feasting. It's a biological cycle. Whenever they used to get food, they used to eat, and whenever they used to unable to get the food, they used to fast, and that's how life has evolved. And as a descendants of those, human beings, we have the same genes where the fasting helps to improve our health, and we also has to have cycles of fasting and feasting to improve our health. So let us know that fasting is not starvation. This is very, very important because starvation is an involuntary and uncontrolled act. Basically, it happens because of absence of food, which is due to external scarcity. In olden days, people used to go for hunting, and whenever they used to get food, they used to eat. Otherwise, they used to fast. But fasting is basically a voluntary and controlled therapeutic abstention from food. So that can be for spirituality or for health, or it may be due to health benefits or metabolic benefits. It's a conscious planned activity. So people do fasting maybe a day, maybe a week, or maybe, a few hours. So basically both starvation and fasting are entirely different and entirely, they live on opposite side of the world. So it is like, a difference between, recreational running and running because, a lion is chasing you. So there are many myths about fasting. Many people think that, fasting burns the muscles, muscles are being wasted. No, actually during fasting, human growth hormone is increased. So it doesn't burn muscle. Actually, the protein comes out and even the lean mass is preserved and bone mass is preserved. And many people think that, metabolism becomes very slow during fasting. It is also a wrong myth because during fasting, adrenaline hormone increases, which increases the basal metabolic rate at least by 12%. So there is no slowing of metabolism. And many other people think that, fasting reduces the blood sugar and people go into hypoglycemia. There's also another wrong conception because during fasting, the liver uses gluconeogenesis to manufacture new glucose form. And also the fat byproducts are produced. So because of that, the brain also, which actually is dependent on glucose, they run successfully, it runs on ketone bodies. So many people think that, obesity, to reduce obesity, many people think that, they have to eat less, calorie deficit diet. But that is a very, very wrong concept because of eating less, the hormones doesn't change. And because they're eating very less, the metabolism, becomes slow, energy crashes. And after a few days, the weight loss plateaus. So there is no further loss of weight because body thinks that we are only going to get a few calories. That is the reason, they gain weight once again. So reducing calories without changing feeding time also slows the metabolism. It does not fix the root cause. So we have to importantly know that obesity is basically due to hormone problem. So the hormonal theory of obesity says that we have insulin in our body, which is nothing but fat storage and using glucose for energy. So the insulin primary job is to move glucose into our cells, where the cells use glucose for energy. So when we eat, insulin rises. But when there is very high insulin, body thinks that, okay, there's a lot of, food available. Why don't we store the food? So the body, what it does, it stores the surplus energy into fatty tissues, into adipose tissue. So the high insulin locks the energy into fatty tissues. So because of that, what happens, the high insulin blocks fat burning. So as long as the insulin is high, the body cannot burn the adipose tissues, because the body cannot access the stored fat. So we have to, importantly, we have to remember this, that obesity is not a caloric imbalance. It is a hormonal imbalance. And it basically occurs because of the excessive and persistent insulin levels in the body. So it is not due to a bad diet or maybe other things. You cannot solve the hormonal problem with a caloric solution. So how do you lose weight then? To lose weight, you have to lower the insulin levels in the body. So now when we see in this picture, we have got two fuel sources. Like an example, the fridge and also the deep freezer. So the fridge is nothing but the glycogen stores in the liver. So liver normally stores glycogen, the glucose in the form of glycogen. So when we don't take the food, the liver releases glycogen. It is converted into glucose due to gluconeogenesis. So this energy reserves last for 24 hours. And at the same time, the body fat also stores energy in the form of body fat. So we have an unlimited storage of body fat depending upon the weight. For example, 1 gram of body fat can give you around 9 calories. So to get a 2000 calories of weight, we need to burn approximately 220 grams of body fat. Body fat. So when the insulin levels are high, the body fat cannot be used for energy. So that is the reason we have to unlock the body fats, we have to reduce the insulin levels. So when we see the human body, it has two states. One is the fit state, which is a high insulin stage, where body is, eating and digesting the food, the blood sugar is increasing, insulin levels are high, and excessive energy, excessive food which is taken is stored on glycogen or fat. Fat burning is completely halted. There's no fat burning because we are always eating, from morning to evening. People take 3 meals a day, and in between they take 3 to 4 snacks and juices. So body is constantly, digesting the food. The insulin is released by the pancreas to store that excess energy. So there is no way that excess energy which is stored in the fat is used for burning the energy. And at the other side, we have got a fat state. So the fasted state, So which is a low insulin state. So here basically the mechanism is insulin drops, the body switches fuel sources, glycogen is depleted, and the body begins burning stored fat for energy. So when the insulin levels drop, the body thinks that we are not getting enough food. So definitely the first 24 hours the glycogen is used, but after 24 hours the body starts using the fat sources. It converts the fatty tissues into ketone bodies, and the ketone bodies are used as an energy source. Normally, even the brain, which uses only glucose, also started using ketone bodies for its energy. So stop. There is some problem. Okay. So to unlock the body stores, we have to reduce the levels of insulin. So because of the fast or during the fasting, the vault opens, the insulin drop releases or unlocks the fatty stores. So the fatty stores are burned, and body starts using its own stored body fat for fuel. So you can see the resistance loop. Normally, what happens is when you start eating frequently, particularly, like refined carbohydrates, like, rice, chapati, sugar, sweet, chocolate, ice creams, or cool drinks, cakes, all these things. So it causes a high insulin levels chronically. Means there is always a continuous rise of insulin in the body. So because of that, cells are loaded, becomes overloaded, they develop insulin resistance. And when there is insulin resistance, body tries to compensate it by producing more and more insulin. And when there is more insulin, the body tries to store the fat, and that leads to weight gain. So this is like a continuous cycle. Normally, when you see, obese people, they are prone to get diabetes because of, this mechanism. So when we see many people think that, if I reduce calories, I will lose weight. But what happens is actually they lose fast, but they also gain very fast. So when we see in caloric restriction, the metabolic rate drops significantly. The metabolism becomes very low. But in intermittent fasting, the metabolism is either maintained or it is increases. And then during caloric restriction, the muscle mass, is reduces. It becomes, very less. But during fasting, because of the growth hormone, the muscle mass is maintained. And during caloric restriction, the insulin levels doesn't go down. Actually, it maintains same. But in intermittent fasting, the insulin levels become very low. So for calorie restriction, you have to count the calories. You have to find out what you're eating, what you're not eating, what type of food you're eating. You have to maintain a diary, and it becomes very difficult. But intermittent fasting, you don't maintain all those diaries. You don't count your calories. Only thing is you have a fasting state and a feasting state. So as we discussed, the calories in, calories out. This was a model where but many doctors used to say, okay, reduce your calorie, but that doesn't work because once they reduce, but suddenly they'll gain all the weight, which result into yo-yo effect. And after a few attempts, they will not even lose weight. But in the fasting, the energy is maintained. So the weight loss is continuous and constant. So as we discussed, the insulin releases the vault and, body uses the fat stores for energy. So now let us look at the 5 stages of fasting metabolism. When you fast, within 0 to 6 hours, the liver breaks down the glucose and releases energy. But after that, the glycogen runs out. Liver doesn't have that much, glycogen stores. After 24 hours, new glucose comes from the amino acids to maintain the blood sugar levels. But after 2 days, ketosis starts. Because of the low insulin, lipolysis is triggered. That means fat is broken down. So it is broken down into fatty acids and ketone bodies. And after 5 days, you can see there is a high growth hormone which maintains muscles. Energy is almost supplied by the fat and ketone bodies. So a person doesn't, feel tired or weakness. He can maintain his energy. He can maintain his everyday activities. So this is a very important slide. You can see autophagy. The Japanese scientists who found out about autophagy even got a Nobel Prize. So basically, autophagy means the body eats its own tissues. So it eats old damaged tissues. And this happens only during fasting. So after 1 day or 2 days of fasting, body, eats all the dead tissues, all the bad cells, and it recycles, it acts like a recycle engine. So from those dead tissues, new cells are formed, new tissues are formed. And this helps to get rid of all the bad things from the body. For example, in Alzheimer's, there's a deposition of amyloid protein in the brain tissues. But because of the fasting, those amyloid protein, all the tissues all those things are digested, and the brain literally cleanses the brain of that debris. And not only, people lose weight, but fasting also reduces atherosclerosis. Because you burn the triglycerides, so it reduces the cholesterol. And people who have fatty liver disease, which is becoming very common nowadays, the fatty liver disease also gets reversed because the fat which is there in the liver is used up as an energy. And because of ketones, there's an improved memory, concentration, and insulin sensitivity is reduced because of the reduced blood sugar level. And the fasting also reduces the CRP levels, that is C-reactive protein levels, which means, there is a reduced inflammation in the body and blood pressure also is reduced. So when we see this during fasting, what happens? The insulin drops significantly. So the fat burning is started and insulin sensitivity is increased. And the second is the adrenal hormone is increased. So which stimulates the metabolism, it increases the basal metabolic rate, resting energy expenditure, and the growth hormone increase up to 5-fold. So this preserves the lean muscle mass and bone density. So together all these hormones basically shifts the body from burning sugar to burning fat. Actually, in obesity, we have to burn the fat, then only the person can lose the weight. So I'm just giving an example where recently we had a patient who was suffering from obesity. We kept on a 17 days, 17 of therapeutic fast. So he lost around 19 pounds. His cholesterol 100 points is reduced. Even LDL is reduced. Triglycerides is reduced. Lipoprotein A, which was 441, has come down to 143. As the lipoprotein A is the strongest indicator of heart problems or heart attacks. So even that also is reduced up to 143. So now let us look into the types of fasting. So we have short fasting called short-term fast, which is typically 12 to 24 hours. So normally when you don't take anything in the night, my evening 6 or 7 to early morning 9 o'clock, that you can call as a short-term fasting. So during that, the glycogen stores in the liver is being used, and there may be mild burning of fat also. So people who are starting on the fasting journey, they can start with the short fast. And there are prolonged fast where it is more than 24 hours, like 48 hours or 72 hours. And some people we keep on fasting even for 3 to 4 weeks also. So during this long fast, people are kept either water or maybe electrolytes or juices. So we can also do like a long fast weekly once, like 24-hour fast, or maybe like 3 days once in 3 months. So this causes a deep fat burning, the fat tissue is burned, and there is activation of autophagy. If you fast for 3 days, there will be autophagy activation. So all the bad tissues are digested and new tissues form. And the other important fasting is intermittent fasting, where you cycle between eating and fasting periods regularly. So the popular methods include either 16-8, that means 16 hours fasting and 8 hours eating, or 14 hours fasting and 10 hours eating, or maybe alternate day fasting. That means one day you eat, one day you fast. You can have a fixed hours of eating and fasting. So basically this improves insulin sensitivity and it is better fat metabolism, and it is easy for beginners also. So the intermittent fasting basically is sustainable. It causes sustainable weight loss and it is good for long-term health. So we can see, different types of intermittent fasting. The 12-hour fast, where you fast for 12 hours and eat for 12 hours. So it's good for daily maintenance. That means you eat after 6 p.m. in the evening, don't take any meals until next morning 6 a.m. 16-8, this is the best fast. Most of the people follow it. That is 16 hours of fasting and 8 hours of eating. So you fast from evening 6 o'clock to yesterday morning 11 o'clock. Then 11 to 6, you can eat some food. Then variated, this is actually called, OMAD, or 1 meal a day. So where you fast for 24 hours and eat only for 4 hours. So that includes one large evening meal and rest of the time you fast. So this is the best for to lose weight. And there is 24-hour fast. So you can do like weekly 2 or 3 times, you fast for 24 hours, eat only one meal and don't eat anything until next 24 hours. And there is another fast called 36 hours where you fast 36 hours. So that means you fast for entire day and 1.5 day. So this is particularly good for type 2 diabetes patients and also for obesity. So another method is 5-2 approach. So in this, basically, a person eats for 5 days and fasts for 2 days. So on Monday you eat, on Tuesday you fast, then Wednesday you eat, on Thursday you fast, then Friday, Saturday, Sunday once again you can eat. Either restrict calories up to 500 to 600 calories, or you can fast. So these 2 fasting days basically triggers the base, same beneficial hormones. So like complete fast, and this is the best method for beginners. So when we see the, what type of food you can take during fasting, there are 2 types of fasting: water fast and juice fast. Normally water fast, involves only taking only water. So we don't encourage doing it for more than 24 hours or 48 hours because, it's difficult to be only on water. But the water fast is basically is good for deep cellular detoxification. And, it improves insulin sensitivity. People who have got a fatty liver, this is the best treatment. If they can fast for 3 days and only on water, it can reverse fatty liver. And other type of fast is juice fast, where you can consume fresh fruits and vegetable juices, like 5 to 6 glasses every 2 hours, one glass of juice, and in between you have to take a lot of water. The juices provide a lot of vitamins and minerals, which actually help to, boost the energy levels, and it improves the gut health, improves immunity. Only thing is, don't add any sugar into the juices. Take cold pressed juices, and consume only fresh juices. This is best fast. Normally, we keep patients on fasting and juice fast from 3 days to even 3 weeks. So, how do you select? So, the basic 12 hours or 628 is good for beginners. The 24 hours or varied diet or OMAD is good for intermediate people, even 5 to hybrid approach also. 36 hours or 42 hours, more than that, is only for advanced people who are already experienced how to do a fast. But who should not fast? This is very important. So people, women particularly who are pregnant, children and adolescents, people who are malnourished or underweight, and anemia, people who are suffering from anemia or have got type 2 diabetes or cancer, these people should not fast. And people, type 2 diabetes or obesity people, they can fast but under medical supervision. So what you can take during fasting, as we discussed, water is very, very important. You can take fresh juices, vegetable juices, or diluted fruit juices, but avoid added sugar. And you can also take some green tea, ginger tea, tulsi tea, but don't add any sugar or milk into that. And you can also try light soups like vegetable soups. For somebody who is who takes animal foods, they can try bone broth. But don't add any spices that make it very simple, very light. So we can see a sample fasting plan. So 6:30 in the morning, 6 o'clock, take warm water and lemon. 8 o'clock, you can take herbal tea. 9:30, you can take coconut water, maybe ashpot juice. 11 o'clock, you can take apple juice. 2 o'clock, coconut water. 4:30, watermelon juice. 6:30, you can take vegetable soup. And 9 o'clock, you can take hot water with a teaspoon or maybe 2 teaspoons of honey. So the honey helps to get a good sleep in the night. Or if you want to do a 16-8 fast from 8 p.m. to 12 p.m. And yesterday, 12 to 8, you can take your food. So basically, during fasting, some people may have hunger. So whenever you feel hunger, drink a lot of water and stay busy. If you stay busy, keep yourself occupied, you don't feel hunger. And when you break the fast very gently. Don't rush to eat a lot of solid foods, at once. And the longer the fast, the breaking should be very, very slow. So take fruits, maybe soft foods like idli, or maybe pongal, light foods. Then slowly you can start taking, other solid foods. So try to break the fast very, very slow. Don't do binge eating. Avoid animal foods or biryani, all fried foods and all. Take, very light food to break the fast. So when we see this, as ancients, all our forefathers, they used to eat, feast and also fast. It's like a cycle. So let us also do the same thing. Please remember that fasting is not starvation. It is a biological counterpart to eating. So by feasting and also fasting, we can definitely improve our health. And let us conclude this, but fasting should not be used in isolation. For best results, you should combine with lifestyle modification. Lifestyle is very, very important. So do fasting, but also you should move your body, do regular exercise. So at least 6,000 to 10,000 steps a day, walking, jogging, swimming, cycling. Or if you're going to gym, maybe you can do gym exercise. But definitely exercise is very, very important. And when you eat food, eat real foods, eat organic foods, whole foods. Avoid all processing, all harmful chemical foods. And not only that, manage your stress, sleep well, and you can start doing meditation, pranayama, yoga. So all these things are very, very necessary. Fasting is a part of your healthy lifestyle, and that way you can maintain your health, prevent many diseases. You can not only, reduce obesity, but many other present-day lifestyle diseases. So thank you very much, sir. Thank you, Professor, for giving me this opportunity. Thank you very much.
Well, I have to say thank you to Dr. Bhargava. I have to say thank you to him. And I firmly believe that our participants should look at these webinars, not just during the webinar, but even after, because there is so much of knowledge in these webinars that we need to refer to it in order to understand it better. Now, Dr. Bhargava said that there was a difference between fasting and starvation. Starvation was when you could not get any food, whereas fasting is a decision we take not to eat food. That is one thing he said. And then he came up with theories that tended to go against the conventional knowledge that we have about calories, eating less, etc. In other words, our philosophy, the Western philosophy, is that the less you eat, the more weight you lose. That is our philosophy. But Dr. Bhargava's ancient wisdom gives us a slightly different picture. He says that it is hormonal imbalance that causes obesity. Hormonal imbalance. And he refers specifically to insulin. And he says that unless the insulin factor is not dealt with, you will continue to put on weight and not lose weight. That's what he said. Eating prevents fat utilization. Eating prevents fat utilization. Fasting results in the reduction of insulin and therefore the utilization of stored body fat. The objective should be to manage your insulin, according to what Dr. Bhargava said. And then in conclusion, he seemed to point out cases where fasting has resulted in a weight loss of, in 15 days, 7 to 10 kgs. And then he tells us the different forms of fasting. Short-term fasting, which should be done once every week. Long-term fasting, which should be done for 2 or 3 days, not eating food, every quarter, every 2 or 3 months. So if you fast 1 day a week, it is therapeutic, it removes body toxins. And this should be done throughout the year. He mentions that as a good thing. When you get used to that, perhaps you should extend your fast with drinking water only for about 2 days, every 3 or 4 months. And then he spent some time talking about intermittent fasting, or 1 meal a day, or not eating on alternate days. And then, of course, he concluded by telling us who should not fast. Children, of course, pregnant ladies, and that we should break our fast gently. Friends, all I can advise you is what I read earlier, and that is that fasting correctly can not only help you to lose weight, it can reset your hormones, which will then guarantee permanent weight loss. So therefore, we should seriously look at easy methods of fasting, maybe 1 day a week throughout the year. In case we are heavily overweight and want to start our fasting, then fasting on alternate days. But most of all, friends, please look at this video from time to time and gain knowledge. With that, ladies and gentlemen, I wish to thank you all very much for listening in to us again today, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you and goodbye.